Hey everyone, welcome back to the Athlete CEO podcast. I'm your host, Erik Averill, and I am joined by my co-host, my brother and business partner, Brandon Averill. And we are the co-founders of AWM Capital, where we are on a mission to help our clients unlock the full potential of their wealth for maximum impact. And the purpose of this podcast is really to dive into how do we maximize the greatest driver of your net worth, human capital. And so over the past year, we've had some incredible guests on, Michael Johnson, the fastest man on the planet, Becca Van Dyke, who runs VR at Facebook, and so many incredible guests. And really today we want to take a reflection back over the past year of a few of the conversations we've been blessed to have with guests, but also what are the things that we've learned as business owners, as advisors to some of the most successful people on the planet. And so really want to just dive in, Brandon, with if you could sum up with a word or a theme of what 2020 has been for you.
Yeah, Erik, no, I think you're exactly right. It's been a fun year, a weird year. A lot of stuff's happened. I think everybody probably knows the dirty little secret of this podcast. It's that you and I get to interact with really cool, interesting people. And I think a lot's happened. I think if I was going to sum this year up for AWM specifically, I think it's the year we became a company. We've been a good organization, I would say, for a good bit of time now. Certainly have developed the expertise to succeed within our field. But, we made a big shift this year where really went away from a reliance upon a couple people and built out the team and really leaned into, hey, we're gonna make this thing a company. And when I reflect back and I think about some of the influential books we've read or the things over the years, I think immediately of, Good to Great with Jim Collins. And, my guess is, and my hope is that when we look back 15 years from now, I think we'll see 2020 as the year that AWM really became a company and started that path towards becoming a great company, which is ultimately a mission of ours.
Yeah, and we talk a lot on this podcast about being best in class, of being a high performer, of the definition of high performance being exceeding standard norms on a consistent basis over the long term without jeopardizing quality of relationships or health. And when I think through those terms of whether it's our athletes or our founders who are trying to be best in class, for us as a company, it's how do we provide the best level of service? How do we not only have knowledge, but the skill and the discipline that it becomes habit, right? And something that we can consistently provide to the marketplace. And we couldn't do that when it used to be only dependent on the few founders, you, myself, and Robbie. Talk a little bit about when you say we grew up and aren't reliant on just a few of us now. How did we arrive at that?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. I mean, if you look at the makeup of our company, I think people are really surprised always to hear that we've, essentially doubled our team this year, hired 7 people through a pandemic, through a volatile, financial markets. No secret, we work a great deal with a number of professional baseball players and other athletes. Seasons weren't played, players weren't paid. So it was an interesting year, but I think that's part of growing up and making the decision to be a company is really lean in, and make the investments where it needs to be made. It's, one thing that comes in tough times right now is the availability of talent, and I think if you're able to recognize the talent and make really good hires and strengthen your team, then this is a fantastic opportunity to do that. And we've done that. I think we saw the market changing. We saw some things changing. We were presented with some amazing people, and we made that decision to go all in. And that's why I said, I think we really grew up as a company this year because, we put the company ahead certainly of our best interests, at least financially, and really leaned into it. And I think it's going to set us up. I mean, we've made no secret. We've always been a long-term company. I think we'll continue to be long-term, and those are hard decisions to make. But again, I think when we look at that 15-year march, to me, I think this is going to be a pretty pivotal year for all of that, and really help to strengthen our culture. I think our culture has never been stronger than what it is today.
Yeah, and it really is fun. It's something that you, Robbie, and I set off over a decade ago. That one of our key tenets that we've told everybody from the beginning is we want to build a company that outlasts the founders. That we want this to not be about you or me individually, but really we started this company because we believed that our clients and future prospects absolutely needed this service. And this year of uncertainty gave us an opportunity to see that being true, and then making that decision to play the long game of, in the middle of uncertainty, when you see the right talent and the right pieces, even though it was super risky, right? We're talking February and March. We're as a family office, a large part of our revenue is attached to the overall investment markets. And so when we see a 30% drop in the United States stock market, and we make the decision to go forward and hire 6, 7 people, you know, I'm reminded of what we read by Ben Horowitz of Andreessen and Horowitz, right? Talking about there's peacetime generals, there's wartime generals, and really, I think an ability to lead, looking around the corner and saying, hey, it might be uncertain, but we have conviction about the solution our clients need. And then when you talk about culture, maybe just shed some light on what this experience has been of how you construct an all-star team, because we've got some great advice in the past by a gentleman, a venture capitalist who had started his own company, eventually exited for 600 million. And I remember the advice he gave us when we were sitting down with him up in the Bay Area was hire on culture, fire on culture. And culture can be this buzzword. What does it mean to you? How do we think through it here at AWM?
Yeah, I mean the esoteric culture word, right? What is it? I think most simply, at least in my mind, it's how do you act? However you act is what your culture is. It's something. It's not words on the wall. We got some fantastic advice, actually. I do think your values point to your culture. I think, unfortunately, values are often set without a whole lot of thought, or just in an idealistic world and not really representing truly who you are. We got some advice from another leader of a financial firm that said, your values, you should be able to say the opposite, or some other firms should be able to say the opposite. So, I think of some of our values, intellectual curiosity. I think this is something we leaned into big time this year. I think we've got people that really embody that. There are a lot of firms out there that probably, will take the opposite approach to that. It's, hey, you know what? We know enough to be good, and that's good enough. Or grit, like grit is a big part of our culture. It's roll up your sleeves, do what needs to get done for the team. And again, especially in our business, there's a lot of lifestyle practices out there that they're not gritty, and they wouldn't claim to be gritty. None of them are right, wrong, or indifferent. But I think when you go through that process and really identify who you are, I think that's important. And I think we've just have added the right people to embody that. I think the other piece of culture, right? Netflix is huge in this. If you read any of their documents, and they're extreme in a lot of ways, and we're extreme in a lot of ways. We're not for everybody, and that's okay. Doesn't mean that we're right or wrong, but we're right for us. And I think, when you evaluate and you add people to the team, you got to be sure that they're going to add to that culture and fit in with that culture, because if not, even one person can really impact it. And we've learned this lesson time and time again. We've had some really good people that were here that just unfortunately don't fit our culture. And it took us, some lessons to figure out how to move forward from that. But I can't explain enough how much importance we put on culture and trying to figure out how people fit in. And when you do that, you get this amplifying effect. You get this compounding effect that just like elevates everybody. And I think we've seen that certainly with adding, Zach Miller this year, and Marissa behind the scenes, and Greg and EJ on the marketing side. We've just seen, Aaron to come lead our golf division. I know I'm forgetting about people because Will, our most recent hire from Louisiana. We just see when you bring these people in, I think it just brings everybody to the next level. And it's been really fun. I mean, we got a call last night from Josh, who's been, with us for a couple of years. And he's just like, he's got a man crush on Aaron after a round of golf. It's just fun to see the recognition by other people of, hey, you know what? I'm on this supercharged bus, and I know that the gal or the guy next to me is driving this thing just as hard as I am and wants the best. And we get a lot of visibility into other firms through study groups, etc. And it's I think it's unique. I hope there's a lot of other companies out there. There's certainly ones we aspire to be that have that element, but it's been fun to see.
And I think, like you said, we're not a fit for everyone. And from the outside, you might look at a specific player on the team. Take me, for example, and say, hey, you know what? I'm not too sure. I think that guy's an A player, but on the right team and the right culture, it's about driven to win a championship. We all fall in love with the movie Miracle, right? Herb gets a bunch of these college kids to go out and beat the Russians that he has this famous line at the end when we put these dream teams together. What's ironic is we rarely get the dream. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really real representation that what you said, the elevation of the energy. One of our other values here is driven to win. When you put Zach Miller in the ingredients, here's a guy who's won a Super Bowl, played 8 years in the NFL. This guy's passion to come and serve the client. This is a person who independently doesn't need a job, but he believes so much in the mission and the vision. And another thing I think that we've learned from just a really wise guy in our industry, a titan of the industry, Jeff Coyle, is when you have this belief set that our job is not to just give the client what they want, but actually convince the client of what they need, it does something for us internally because there's such a deep conviction of we have something that can truly help people, right? One of the frustrations I think that's really boiled over in 2020 for us is seeing wasted wealth. And it's also seeing just missed impact and opportunity of going, one of the hardest things about 2020 was the biggest opportunity that people were scared, right? And still are. I mean, even with a vaccination coming in 2021, there's so much uncertainty. And as humans, we don't like uncertainty, but it gave us an opportunity to raise our hand, take ownership, and say, we're going to be in our clients' lives. We're going to bring a solution to them. We're going to sit with them in the uncertainty and walk through that. And so one of the things I'd love to hear your thoughts on is when we talk about, growing up as a company, there was also this shift from like knowledge to skill and discipline, from what you read in a book about being a founder, about being an advisor, versus book knowledge versus kind of skill set and experience. Share a little bit about, how we're experiencing that here at AWM.
Yeah, I think it's been really illuminating, like you mentioned. I mean, the knowledge was always super important to our company when we founded this. What we knew is that, we were going to specifically attack the market on baseball players, and we didn't just want to be another baseball player becoming a financial sales guy. I mean, there are plenty of former athletes selling financial products out there. The world doesn't need two more. And so, we started off early in that, right? Got our CFPs right away, pursued the CPWA later on, added CPAs and CFAs. One thing we always wanted to demonstrate was you're not going to meet salespeople at AWM. And I think that was a huge benefit for the first leg of our company, is really getting our feet under ourselves, understanding the expertise, building the expertise that we had. And what's been interesting to see, like you said, Erik, this year is that expertise. There are some people out there with it, but the application of it is what's so interesting, right? And it's fascinating to me to see really good people that worked their tails off to build companies and sell companies, to create wealth on the field, that have great intentions, that want to have an impact, and yet they're just being completely underserved. I mean, it's just stared us in the face time and time again this year. And it's sad. It's really sad and surprising. I don't know if we just had our head in the sand, because we were just serving our current clientele, but opportunities have fortunately abounded this year, and we've seen time and time again. So I think it gave us this confidence of, you know what, like, we have a premier product. We have a premier service, and we're not selling anything. There's a clear need. These people need us, and it's not to make the guy that sold his company for 350 million richer. What we know about a lot of these people, or at least people we want to work with, they want to make an impact in the world.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
if you waste wealth, all you're doing is wasting impact. And that's sad. And so to us, I think it's exciting. It's exciting to know that we have a framework to look at wealth differently. The traditional rules don't always apply. Everything needs to be customized. You need to help clients understand what their priorities are and outcomes, and make sure they're asking the right questions. Um, so I think it's all changed in this world. I think under stress, right, things get illuminated, and that's where we find ourselves today.
Well, I think that last point's really enlightening. We know this as athletes, whether when we get in the gym, the whole reason we load our bodies with weight is literally to put them under tension, because it's the breaking down that, as long as we get our sleep right, which the Whoop will tell us how much we need to sleep, is your body will repair and you'll be stronger. It's this tension. There's a refiner's fire. We know this of pulling out the dross, right, and the metals. And that was 2020. It is 2020. Is the amount of tension and stress. The truth is gonna come to light, and also the skill sets and the expertise. And when you talk about, the way in which we look at wealth, we talk about long game, long game, long game. The truth is, if you have multi-generational visions and timeframes, you can outperform. You can make an impact. We always say, right, we overestimate what we're going to do in the short term, and we underestimate what we can do in the long term. And so I think that's been the fun thing to say is, under stress, not only did the thesis and the business model that we've worked with for the last 12 years come to light, but there was a desire and a need, right? As you start to have conversations with all of us, 2020 has made everyone do what we're doing right here, is reflecting back. What's most important? What do I actually want out of life? And do I have people that are surrounding me on this mission with the skill set to move us forward? And so, I would also, going back to culture, application as a founder and an owner, talk about when you do have a team of a bunch of A players, right? They've got visions for their own lives and progress. Can you talk about what it is, some of maybe the challenges that you have to think through leading a team when it comes to keeping people inspired, hungry, enticed, challenged? How are you thinking about leading our team?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's knowing your team. We're fortunate. And I think this goes back to culture. When you start to evaluate who fits and what their motivations are and their motivators are, everybody's motivated a little bit differently. But I think we have, fortunately, at the size of company we are right now, we still have a lot of the same motivators. And that's to, in large part, make our clients' lives better. And to a person, I think right now we have a very service-oriented culture, of the sense that most, I think everybody here would put others ahead of themselves. And so, I think, yes, ambition is huge, and we have very ambitious, competitive people. And I think that's, it goes back to the team mentality. Like, are you building a true team? And what comes with a true team? I'm reminded of a podcast I just listened to with Tim Ferriss, and I'm gonna butcher his last name probably, but I won't even try. It's a CEO of Shopify. So go listen to that podcast. Anybody that's listening to this, tons of takeaways, tons of value. But he talks about this concept of requalifying for your job every year. And I think when you've got competitive A players that want to be the best, that want to be a service, that process, right? If they're requalifying for their job every year, it's a challenge. That's what most of our people, it's what we want, is to be challenged, to be the best that we can absolutely be. And so, I think when we're moving as quick as we're moving, as we're innovating and changing and all of those types of things, then A players are going to be motivated. I'm not too worried about that. And it's give them opportunity. I think, the transparency, hopefully we provide as an organization, nothing's hidden here. we've developed new processes. We've always looked for the best. And so, OKRs is a great example. Objectives, key results, most famously probably, Andy Grove is kind of the founder of OKRs at Intel. John Doerr, the famous venture capitalist, made him probably popular amongst most people. Google has adopted him. Right? Every tech company out there, right? But we really leaned into that, and I think when it's just orienting and making sure that everybody's paddling in the same direction with these, is set your firm objectives and allow people to know, hey, if I'm supporting these objectives, I'm going to have upward mobility. And we've made no secret about it that we want people to aspire to be partners of this firm. We're going to give you the opportunity. It's going to take you a while, probably, and you got a lot to demonstrate, but it's on the table. And so try to be transparent, try to give them and support them, I guess, is the last thing. I mean, we've, not surprising, I mean, we're sitting here with these mics and doing this podcast, and the other day it was shocking to me. It's like episode 41 of AWM Insights. And I'm like, what in the heck? I mean, you guys
COVID's supposed to be over.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy to get, most people probably know this, but to get me to record one podcast was a monumental feat, let alone, number 41. And so, it's giving people the tools to be successful. I think that's one thing we recognize this year is how can we be different in that aspect? How can we give Aaron the best tools and the opportunity to go, and really build something special in the golf market? How do you do the same for Zach, potentially in the football market? How do you do, baseball on our side with Travis and Will, the entrepreneurship community that we're building? Like, how do you give advisors all the tools necessary to go out there and be successful? I think
the other thing I would add to that culture is, like, they equally have incredible talents and gifts and things for us to learn from, right? Is, yeah, we've been here doing this for a model, and we have a proven concept. But one of the things I love about our culture is the agility and the willingness to be curious. You've mentioned multiple times our study group, and so whether that's through Dimensional Fund Advisors, it's seeking out understanding that we can't just stay where we're at, that the same things aren't going to progress us. Whether it's, for the athlete, we talk about this, what gets you to the major leagues doesn't keep you there. What gets you to the NFL doesn't keep you there. Aaron talks about, what helps you win on your first tour. Why are people retooling their swings? And that's applicable to us as business owners and as founders, is saying, how are we going to progress? How are we not going to be a stalemate? And so, coming in right off the bat, we have employees that are saying, hey, you know what? I'm seeing this in a different lens. I'm doing it this way. And the humility to understand and recognize, our employees they're not aiming for our jobs. They're just bringing the best of who they are available to make us better, and the willingness to blow things up. Maybe talk a little bit about how have we changed our model? How have we moved forward in making sure that we're not being stuck, right? I don't want maybe I do because you're the CEO, but there's this history in the venture world that the founder gets you there and then they fire them and bring in a CEO who can sustain. We're not going to have a coup here because I don't want your responsibility, but talk a little bit how we think about agility and adaptability.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting observation in the founder world. Is going back to Jim Collins' Good to Great, of the 11 great companies, I think 10 of the leadership positions had been there from founding all the way through the end of the study. So
wow.
I think that's there's some potential misconception there. I'm not just going for job security. I would love somebody to take my job. But, I think at the end of the day, it's learning all the time. I mean, we have fantastic people that are certainly better than us in so many different categories. I mean, podcasting, we've got much more dynamic personalities than me. I can guarantee that. And people that, present a lot better. So I think, just having that kind of continually, how do we get better? How do we reinvent? How do we stay? How do we requalify? How do we do all that kind of stuff is huge. I mean, I think it inspires me to watch the dedication to the craft of some of our people. and to be pushed constantly by, hey, we want to get better, we want to do these different things. And I think the reinvention that I saw this year, I mean, we've had this saying since we started, it must be present to win. Well, guess what? We can't be present very often right now. So, we had to totally reinvent. It's the podcast. How do we educate if we're not in front of people? And it's credit.
And we used to spend 100
Yeah.
nights on the road,
Yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like our
Yeah.
calling card was the fact that we're going to be in person with you.
Absolutely.
We couldn't just throw our hands up and say, oh, 2020, shut it down.
Yeah.
It's adapting to that of how do you not only not cash it in, but not just do a Zoom call? How do you do it more effectively? How do you invest in the software going forward is really making sure that we can still provide our service in a way that meets the times.
Yeah, no question. I think it's focusing on that, but I think at the end of the day too, we've always been so big about education, and this goes back to Greg, who's sitting behind the camera, to Eric, Jewel, EJ, really challenging us this year, I feel like, and saying like, hey, you guys can't go out and be there in person, so we need to push this content out. And coming in and saying like, hey, this is really good stuff and people should hear it. The only way I've gotten through these podcasts, I believe nobody's listening. But I think it's good. We've gotten a lot of good stuff out there, and we've seen the dividends of that with, centers of influence, relationships, clients, prospects that reference these things and have found great value in them. And that's really fun to see. And so I really love that we've reinvented ourselves. We can't wait to get back out there in person. But I feel like we're stronger because we're doing all of this and pushing this education out there. And hopefully we're reaching more people than we can even, potentially work with individually. And we're making the industry a better place. I think that's a huge side benefit that we try to
we have it on our website. It's a crazy lofty goal, but really what we're trying to do is demonstrate to the world reimagining what a family office should look like that is built to be in service of the other. And we talk about it from our backgrounds as professional athletes or as founders is you wake up every day and you demand the best of yourself. You are so committed to saying, how do I become the master of my craft, right? How do I become the highest performer? And they should demand that of us in our industry, is really asking the question of who is best in class. And that's why I'm excited is we close the book on 2020 is not just to get past the COVID thing, but really say, all right, we grew up as a company looking forward. What is the multi-generational vision to say, define what is best in class? And I think that's our vision as we go into 2021 is everybody wants to be best in class. Well, define what it means. What's the knowledge that's required? What's the skills that are required? What are the disciplines to do it consistently over the long term? So our best in class can show up as habits of service for the clients. And so that's really what we're looking to do in the future in 2021. And so we love the time that we've spent with you this past year. We appreciate just all of your guys' feedback and your attention. Of course, head over to athleteceo.com. You can access everything that we referenced in the show notes, and have a great new year. We're excited to see you guys once the calendar turns over. And always be humble, be hungry, and always be a pro.